Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to this month's edition of Artist Alchemy. This is the show where now once a month we get together and talk about that kind of that magic that artists do to turn the everyday into something spectacular. We're very pleased today to welcome back our friend Aaron Burks. Aaron, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Looking at the records, I realized that we were together just about a year ago today to talk about you and the work you've done and your time after the service and a little bit about your time in the service. So
Mhm.
that was great to see you over the weekend. Saturday, we had a great opening reception here in our art gallery in Marysville, featuring Aaron's work, his current project, Sleeping Giants, Pearl Harbor Survivors Then and Now. We'll talk about that more in detail here in a minute. But so, Aaron, just bring us up to date. How's your life during this latest phase of COVID? Is it still impacting you or your work?
Uh, I think slowly it's starting to even out. Is it the same as pre-COVID? Probably not, but it's to the point where it's manageable, and I'm able to kind of figure out what's going on. So, kind of like everybody else, I'm kind of learning the ropes in the post-COVID world or the current COVID world, and just running with what I have.
That's a very reasonable, practical approach. And we at the Arts Council are kind of doing the same thing as we try to open up fully to what we were pre COVID in terms of regular art gallery shows and performances in our theaters. And we're inching toward normalcy, but, we're still not there yet. With our
Mhm.
COVID policy in place and everything we're doing, trying to keep people safe, it's tough. But we press on. We had a great show on Saturday. Of course, we always wish a few more people had come out to see your work. But again, we'll talk about that exhibit and how our viewers can see it here in the weeks ahead. And I'm always enjoy reflecting on how we first met years ago at one of our first Harvest the Arts events out of John Hyer's farm in Live Oak. And you just somehow found out about us, I guess, and signed up as an exhibitor. And I think you were showing at that time your various maritime scenes. And
Mhm.
uh, yeah, you had a great exhibit out there. Um, did you start? So that makes me wonder. Was some of your, I guess, some of your early work, or most of your early work, was doing maritime scenes and the ships and
Yeah, I think at that time I was doing mainly maritime based work, uh, geared just towards my experiences in the Navy. And I didn't really, other than a direction of really enjoying depicting my time at sea, I didn't really have much of a solid direction to move. And that was where I was at. I was kind of at a junction at that point, I think.
these are just spectacular. I've always admired them, the way you capture the sea and excuse me, the clouds. Wasn't that the McCampbell just
That
prior
one
to
there
this?
that's the USS Gary. That was the second ship I was on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was a guided missile frigate. The in this picture that you're showing now, the foreground is the USS Gary, and the background is the USS McCampbell.
Oh, is that those are both of your ships?
Yeah, the reason they're both depicted there is because the Gary had a crew swap with the USS McCampbell.
Really?
So basically, what they do is they rotate ships from what they call forward deployment. In this case, in Japan, Seventh Fleet. The USS Gary had been in that position for 10 years, and they decided to rotate her back to the United States and bring the McCampbell in. So what they do in that situation is they take most of the crew from the USS Gary and put them on the USS McCampbell, and take most of the crew of the USS McCampbell and put them on the USS Gary. That
Wow.
way they don't have to worry about transferring personnel back to the United States or into
Okay.
Japan. It's a logistical nightmare then. So just moving the ships is easier.
How do they do that at sea? Do they pull up alongside like with the pirate ships when they're going one on one in battle, or run a
they
gangplank
can do
across
that, but what they do is, for instance, I was part of the advanced crew, so I flew from Japan to San Diego, and I sailed the McCampbell back as part of a skeleton crew. And the McCampbell crew that was on the McCampbell at the time just kind of rode the ship back to Japan and hopped on the Gary, and the rest of the Gary crew hopped on the McCampbell.
Okay. I was imagining the metal clanging together as sailors tried to jump from one ship to the other. It's not quite that dramatic. Okay. So much for too many movies, I guess.
Right.
Well, let's jump right in and talk about the Sleeping Giants project. So, gosh, you've been working on this for what, over 2 years?
Yeah, I started in December of 2019, so close to 2 years.
Yeah. And you started telling us about it. We went ahead and wrote a grant to try to get some funding to help support you in the project. Even before we got the notification, we got the grant. We helped you get over to Hawaii, and was that December 2019?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know what? I have my year mixed up. I started the project in 2018, December 2018.
Okay. So yeah.
So it's almost
3 years.
Yeah, going on 3 years now.
Yeah. So you'd been, fomenting this whole idea, and so you went in December of 2019 to Hawaii to be there for the Pearl Harbor services that occur every year. We got the grant funding, and so that, we thought, opened the door to helping cover more travel expenses for you as you worked your way around the country meeting Pearl Harbor survivors. And then, of course, COVID hit. We all know what happened there. And I suspect that 90-year-old veterans wouldn't have been very willing to have strangers come into their home from California to meet with them. So
I think it was more of their families or the medical caretakers that were in there, that had them in their charge. The veterans themselves, they're always up to meet somebody.
Really? Oh, okay.
But you have to follow the protocols, and you can't just go, if they're being cared for by somebody, you can't just show up. So you have to go through the motion. So
tell us a story about how you got interested in this project. Back in your early days, you knew a couple of survivors. How did that all play out?
When I was a kid, I had two mentors who were Pearl Harbor survivors. One of them lived just a couple houses down from me, and I had a paper route. And so I would deliver all my papers and then go deliver his last and hang out and just talk to him.
Wow.
And his name was Mr. Shipham. And then I had another one. His name was Mr. Bob Lett, who I was a Sea Cadet as a teenager, and he was one of our officers in the Sea Cadets. And so he basically was our mama duck. We just followed him around and listened to all his cool sea stories. And
wow.
Yeah, you just hear all these stories as a kid, and they're so inspiring. And, some of his stories are probably not what people today would call kid friendly.
Right. I was wondering. Sure.
Yeah. But back then it was, it was okay. And really
great stuff.
Yeah. Between those stories and their listening to their life experiences and how they used their experiences to make them who they were, they made me who I am. And so I kind of I've always felt beholden to that group of people, in particular, Pearl Harbor survivors.
Sure.
And, then, so I went into the Navy because of them, and served in the military until 2011 when I retired. And we had Veer Gardner, a Pearl Harbor survivor local here,
who I had met during our Portraits of Veterans project. Yeah.
A really great guy. And he was in my VFW post. And I decided I wanted to I wanted to get his story down for the VFW minutes, so that, you know, when people 50 years from now look back at the minutes from our meetings, they see his story.
Nice.
And I thought, well, why not do a portrait of him? And
interesting.
yeah, so I started doing a portrait, and unfortunately, before it was finished, he passed away. And I thought to myself, well, why not find more living Pearl Harbor survivors in this area?
I didn't realize it actually started with Veer. All
Yeah,
the times we've talked about this, I didn't make that connection. That's fascinating.
Yeah, Veer was the first one I drew, and and he was kind of the seed that sparked the tree. So, yeah,
amazing. So you had to take some time off from travel because of COVID, but you had met some other survivors prior to, and then you just returned from a cross-country trip. You were able to connect with another group of survivors, literally all over the country. Though you went back to where, Florida or Alabama or way back.
I went to Texas, Louisiana, and Alabama.
Amazing.
And there were a couple more that I was trying to get to, but I couldn't get in touch with them. So, you know, at some point you have to cut the cord and keep moving on.
As you've told me, it's not like there's some list or directory or any easy access to folks who survived the Pearl Harbor attack. And you've got to really do your research, as you have done. Who's this?
That is Lou Conter. He actually lives in Grass Valley.
That's his before picture.
And that's him now.
Wow. And describe that process. So obviously you weren't around with him in 1941.
Right.
How does this all work? How do you create the portraits? What's your source material?
When I meet the veteran, I talk to them. I get kind of an idea for their personality. And after the interview, I'll take a bunch of photos of them. And out of all of those photos, I'll decide what aspects of certain photos I like, or, you know, what pose I like versus which lighting in the other photos I like. And I'll just kind of use those to make my own portrait of them. And for the young portraits, I have to ask them for a picture of them that they have from back then. And sometimes it's around that time, like Lou Conter's, I think, was taken within a few months of the attack.
Oh, wow.
And others, you know, like a man that I met in Oceanside, George Coburn, the only photo he had from World War II was in 1944, when he finally got his Purple Heart from Pearl Harbor. And you just have to use that because that's all you have.
Sure.
The artistic process in those portraits more come from kind of depicting a personality or a feeling of the time by lighting, or also I like to put their duty stations in the background to kind of.
I love that, where you incorporate the ships and
connect them to where they were in Pearl Harbor.
Just hearing you describe the process and the fact that it's more than just it's a character study and a bit of a psychology study as well, trying to capture that, as any great portrait should, to capture that personality and that individual. Like this one's just got so much life. Who's that?
That is Ray Richmond.
Right.
And he was on the USS Oklahoma. He was a really good guy. Unfortunately, he passed away within a month or two of me talking to him, which has happened, obviously, because most of these guys are centenarians now.
Right. Really getting up there. Oh, incredible. That's going to be hard. You know, you meet and spend some time. What's the usual amount of time you spend with a veteran? Is it an average? You get half an hour with them, or?
I would say on average, I spend about an hour. Some have been really talkative, and they take 2 hours.
Nice.
But even when you're talking to the longer ones, they tend to go off on their own little tangents after the interview, and they want to show me all their stuff that they have and all their memorabilia. Really cool, because the 2 Arizona survivors I've met have chunks of their ship.
Oh my
and
gosh!
like, look, this is a piece of the Arizona I still have.
Wow.
Wow, that's really, it's awe-inspiring. And then you have a couple who are either not doing so well physically or whatever, and they can't really talk that long, and so you're looking at about 30 minutes to talk to them.
These are obviously some of the subjects that you've met with.
Yeah, that is Lewis Walters in Hawaii. He lives in Kaneohe Bay, Hawaii.
Oh, nice.
He's an interesting one because so far he was the youngest one I met. And he was a teenager, a civilian working in the shipyard at Pearl Harbor at the time.
Jay.
And the one you have pictured right now is Richard Higgins. He was on Ford Island, and he lives up in Oregon. Really cool guy. That guy. He's a good one.
Who's that?
That's Richard Higgins. Oh, that's me. That's me. That's me about a lifetime ago.
Yes.
Back when I had hair.
Channeling James Dean.
Yeah.
It's just a fascinating project. It's awe-inspiring, and then to see them all together as they are now in the gallery here at YubaSutterArts&Culture in Marysville. Any of you watching are able to come by, give us a call. We're usually here between 10 and 4 during the week. We can certainly arrange a special showing time if a weekend time slot's more convenient for you. Just give us a call and come by and see this work. Because Aaron's got he also does his own framing. These pieces beautifully framed, and then between each before, then and now pair of portraits is the narrative of that conversation that Aaron has with the veterans. And Aaron's also a very gifted writer, and so you read through these narratives and it just really, really brings it home. I read them all in one sitting last week, and it's pretty deep stuff. Just a beautiful show. So what we were just looking at is the current phase of the project, and I know you've got some others that you're working on their portraits, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then these are all pastel portraits, correct?
They're charcoal and pastel.
What's the difference between pastel and charcoal? I don't even know that.
Charcoal is mainly deals in black and white, as far as I know. And
all right, I was going to say pastels are the color ones. So when you see a veteran with the blue eyes or what have you, yeah.
Well, actually, the eyes are all done in watercolor.
Oh,
it's the pastels that I use are, oddly enough, just black and white pastels, but they're used to give a much deeper, a bigger depth to it.
Okay, so mixed media. How about that?
Yeah.
Does that work?
Yeah, that works.
But then the next big part is then you're gonna turn these into or create separate oil paintings.
Yes, sir. The next phase of the project is to make 2 oil paintings for every veteran. And unlike the drawings that have the story mounted between the paintings or between the drawings, the paintings will have snippets of their stories in the painting, so that you'll read it while you're looking at the subject.
Gee, incredible. Is there an end to this project?
I think the full end game for the project is probably going to be a book that will compile all of them together in a coffee table book type thing, so that it can get out to wider audiences. Because, I mean, as much as we wish they would, not everybody's going to make it out to art galleries or museums to see these. So I want it to be available to everybody who is interested.
And as we've discussed, we've got some experience in creating our Day in the Life of Yuba Sutter book series, working with our local Rotary Club. And we've got some ideas and might be able to help in that regard as well. So we'd love to work with you on that. So, and you've got other plans to travel the show? You've got other museums interested or galleries?
Yes. Right now I'm looking at the National World War II Museum in New Orleans, the National Museum of the Pacific War in Fredericksburg, Texas. I know it seems like an odd place to have a Pacific War museum, but it's because Fredericksburg, Texas is where Admiral Nimitz was born. So it's his hometown, and Nimitz was the main commander of that theater of war. Then there's other places like the Veterans Art Museum in Chicago. Obviously, I really want to see if I can get it shown in Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
At the National Memorial there. And then
is there a space? I haven't been, so I don't know.
Yeah, they have some rotating exhibits out there, and they're really nice. It is quite a facility. If you're ever in the Pearl Harbor area, you need to see it.
Absolutely. Incredible. Sleeping Giants, Pearl Harbor Survivors Then and Now. Come see it here at YubaSutterArts in Marysville. It's well worth an hour of your time to come by and share this experience. So beautiful. So what are you going to do in your spare time? You got some painting to do, my friend.
Yeah, I got a lot of paintings to do.
Exciting.
Between that, I also have some commission work I'm still working on. And I think next year in 2022, I'm probably going to take a hiatus for commission work. Just to get this Pearl Harbor thing ironed out.
And talk about those commissions. I was intrigued when you described the change of command things that you do and the calligraphy that's involved.
Yeah, I do a lot of work for the U.S. Navy in changes of command. So whenever there's a turnover from the commander of a ship to another commander, they have a ceremony. Oddly enough, called the change of command ceremony. And a lot of times they'll give the outgoing commander a gift, and I've kind of become a go-to for the change of command gift. And so I'll get contacted by these commands asking for a painting of their ship on a nautical chart, and so that's what I do. I would say that's the main bread and butter work for me. And then every once in a while, I'll get a large painting commission. Like right now, I'm doing a huge painting that I need to finish of USS Bonhomme Richard and its predecessors. And so,
what class is that ship?
The current one was an LHD. It actually was the one that caught on fire last summer, and one of the officers off that ship wanted a picture of that ship with the former Bonhomme Richards, which one was an aircraft carrier, and the first one was John Paul Jones's ship. And so
that's why it's part of that same family of ships. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what it's familiar.
So that's kind of what I do when I'm not working on Pearl Harbor Survivors.
Have you been to Annapolis, Maryland?
I've been through Annapolis, Maryland once.
To the academy, the Naval Academy? Or
no, I drove past it. I was a truck driver when I went through.
When you were there, I was going to say, isn't John Paul Jones buried there?
Yes, he is.
Academy? So I'm just remembering from a trip when I lived in Maryland those 20 years, and we went over. Actually, it was a school field trip for my children, and we saw the crypt, the burial site for John Paul Jones. I just remember.
Yeah,
incredible.
Very cool stuff.
You want to talk a little bit about your military career? It's always fascinating when I'm talking about you or writing a press release about you, and the fact that you were, and I finally got it straight. I think you joined the Navy in your teens, earlier than you probably should have, right?
Yeah.
But we won't tell anybody. And then you did some period of time. Then you joined the Army, got out. Then you joined the Navy again. Then you joined the Army again. So talk about that.
All right.
It's pretty fascinating.
My military career was unorthodox, and sometimes I confuse myself. But I joined the Navy in 1995, and I served in the Navy until 2003. And in 2003, of course, we went to war with Iraq, and I was at shore duty in Lemoore at the time. Prior to Lemoore, I was on the USS Peleliu for 5 years. And when I went to shore duty, it was kind of boring, and didn't really have the excitement that being at sea did. And I tried a couple of times to go back out to sea, and they wouldn't let me. So in 2003, I got out of the Navy and I went into the Army, hoping to go to Iraq, and instead I ended up going to the Sinai in Egypt for a peacekeeping operation.
Mm.
The mission was peacekeeping, wasn't all that peaceful. And after at the conclusion of that mission, I decided, I'm not a bad soldier or anything. I'm just way better of a sailor. So I went back into the Navy and was stationed in Japan on the USS Gary and then the USS McCampbell. And then in 2009, the Navy started downsizing, and just pretty much basically they were telling everybody who is a certain rank at a certain time in their career, they had to get out. And so in order to keep my career going, I went back into the Army, and that time I ended up in Iraq. And
Wow.
In 2011, I retired after getting hurt. So I didn't do a full 20. I only did 15, but I ended up retiring out of it.
Yeah, boy, what an odyssey of service. That's incredible. Is that a unique situation? Do you know many other veterans who served in a couple of different?
Yeah, going what services? They call going blue to green, where you go from the Navy to the Army, that wasn't too terribly unheard of during the early 2000s.
Okay.
I think because of the height of the war at the time, a lot of Navy guys wanted to go into the Army.
Inspired a lot of people to do that. Yeah.
But what was completely out of the ordinary was going in, transferring, coming back and transferring again. I don't think I've ever met anybody who's done that.
But you get cumulative credit for all of that service, I assume.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I ended with 15 cumulative years.
Yeah.
So 12 in the Navy altogether, and then 3 in the Army. And it's a little odd because I retired from the Army, and I did way more in the Navy and know way more about the Navy than I do the Army.
That is interesting. But you're a sailor at heart, I know.
Yeah.
Oh, incredible. Well, let's go way back and talk about your early days, or I assume they were early. When did you think you might want to someday be an artist? Was that a childhood dream, or during your time in service, or when?
I think as a very young kid, I really liked drawing, and I thought I wanted to do that just for my life and everything. And as you grow up, you start to get interested in other things. I never got disinterested in drawing, but as my want to go to sea and my want to be in the Navy and do something for my country kind of took over, that idea of art as a career kind of went away. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until after I retired that it really came back. There were times in my military career where I'd use my artistic talent, as it were, to do stuff. I'd do like pictures or murals on doors on the ship, or people would want me to draw their girlfriend back home. I'd do that. And
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, little oddball jobs and things like that, but nothing like serious. It was when I retired that it really kind of took root. I found myself out of the military. It was quite unexpected. and my wife told me I should go to college and use my GI Bill. And up until that point, I had no use for college. Like,
Yeah, sure.
I didn't really think it was for me. And, you know, but I took my wife's advice. And so I started at Jackson State Community College in Tennessee, in Jackson, Tennessee. And I had to find a major. So I was trying to figure out what my major was going to be. And, you know, I thought about architect, and then I found out that had a lot of math in it. And I was like, well,
lots. Yeah.
Not architect then. And my wife was like, well, you've always liked to draw. Why don't you just become an artist? And so, yeah, that's how I ended up doing it.
Now look at you. Hey. No, that's great. Great story. I mean, did you do any art in high school, or really all?
Yeah. I used to draw all the time. In fact, I'd get in trouble, and I'd always get in trouble for drawing instead of listening in class.
And, one of those.
Okay. Yeah. I was a very poor student. I ended up in continuation school, and the one art class I ever took in high school, I got kicked out of.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It wasn't for bad reasons, though. The art teacher of the class, his name was Mr. Rash. And yeah, he says, you know, I don't want you in my class because he told me because you already have your thing going on and I don't want to mess it up.
Wow. So, interesting.
I said, well, don't be rash about this.
Mr. Rash.
Yeah. And so that's the, up until college, that was the only art class I ever took. And I got kicked out halfway through the semester.
That's amazing. Who are some of your current or historic inspirations? I know there's some artists that you particularly admire.
I think first and foremost, especially for the project that I've taken on now, my biggest inspiration is Hans Holbein the Younger, who was the court painter for Henry VIII.
Oh, right.
And the whole reason we know about the Tudors and Henry VIII is because of Hans Holbein and his paintings. Without these paintings, nobody would care, because we wouldn't have a visual. We wouldn't connect to it on a human level.
Sure.
And that's kind of inspired me into this project with Pearl Harbor survivors. Is I want people to look back at these portraits hundreds of years from now and be interested in this time period.
Have that visual connection. Yeah.
And then other artists I'm always really interested in are Van Dyck, who was also a court painter for Charles II, or Charles I, rather.
Was that a good gig for those guys? I assume it was, right?
It was. Oddly enough, it didn't pay a lot.
Interesting.
It did not pay a lot, but what they got in return was notoriety and access to the court of the monarchy, which back then, having access to the monarchy's court was worth a lot.
Okay. You could build your brand and sell some artwork on the side, and right.
Yeah. So for instance, Hans Holbein did all these fantastic portraits of all these people during the Tudor era, because all these people would see him doing the paintings of the king and would come and commission him to do paintings of them.
Yes. Okay.
And so while he would get this amount stipend for being the king's court painter, he was also making a lot of money doing commissions on the side too. You know, too bad we don't have anything like that anymore.
Hey, I know. Hey, we're the best you got, pal. Sorry.
Right.
we're writing grants for you, brother.
Yeah, that's great.
You and other artists that we try to help support to the best of our abilities. But I hear you. No more court painters. Huh? Well, you know, they get the president usually, I think, and the first lady usually wind up with a commissioned portrait.
Right? I think what they do is there's there's a portrait contest every year, or every 4 years it might be.
Yeah.
I think it's every 4 years. And whoever wins that contest gets to paint the president and the first lady.
Okay.
Now,
is that how they do it? I always wondered how they choose that presidential portrait artist.
yeah, I'm trying to remember what it's called.
I'll look it up. Yeah.
Yeah, it's something portrait prize.
Okay.
Like, the UK has their own version of it too, but California used to do a professional painting of the governor.
Yeah.
Every governor, and then they just quit that, I think, not too long ago.
Because there's like, so why not have a photograph taken? What's the difference between
Yeah,
an official?
yeah,
You can
that's
see some pretty nice portraits versus a. We'll talk about the cocktail du jour in just a moment.
sorry.
But no, thank you. It's I'm jealous. But yeah, why photo versus oil painting?
Well, photos are cheaper to produce, and
Yeah,
they're easier to mass produce. And I think a lot of the powers that be today look at paintings and they're like, well, why do we need a painter to make a portrait and take possibly months to do a portrait that's going to cost, tens of thousands of dollars probably to have it done right, versus pay this photographer maybe a couple $1,000s and have it done by tomorrow. Yeah, that's how they look at it. And they don't look at it as painting puts a real human quality into the portrait that a camera lens can't put in. A camera lens is sterile and will just show you as you. Right. Like, no, there's not a whole lot of personality to it. It's very, just sterile. Take the picture, you're done. Whereas a painting, you have to meet the person. You have to actually talk to the person. You have to get to know the person.
So more interaction, that's part of it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then the other thing is, that there's the idea that paintings are a lot more, and I'm sure there will be people who disagree with me on this, but in my view, they're a lot more durable than photographs. I think they last longer if they're done right. Poor painting won't last 50 years, but a well done painting will last 1,000 years.
Sure.
Whereas a photograph, it's printed on paper. Its time is finite.
Yes.
No, and then now we have everything is digital, and that's grand and everything, but
sure.
People rely on digital for everything, and well, what happens if you don't have this technology in the future? Sure. Which is always a distinct possibility.
Yeah.
But even if we lose all our digital media, painting will always be there.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, as you're describing that, I'm just thinking about as you said, the human touch, that brush on canvas thing that you can see, when you look at an original of a painting, whatever subject, that you really can feel the artist's impact on that image, whatever it may be. And that's a little less tangible with a photo portrait. Although I have some favorite portrait photographers, Yusuf Karsh and all the great stuff he did, or Avedon, or Lord Snowden, and others that have done these really introspective portraits. But you don't have
there's
that.
Nothing to take away from those guys.
Yeah.
I think that especially professional official portraits done for the government are just so stock, and they're always done the same way.
The flags in the background.
Yeah.
Everybody's dressed up, and it's very cookie cutter. Yeah, whereas a painting, you can have 50 portraits done by the same painter, and none of them are going to be the same. And like you said, you look at brush strokes, and not only do you think about the painting itself, but you start
your mind starts wandering into, I wonder what this person was like. I wonder what this person was like in real life. Whereas in a photograph, you just look at the guy or the gal and you're like, well, there they are. So
What you see is what you get, huh?
yeah.
Yeah, fascinating. Yeah, that's been going on since photography was invented. I think, you know, the photography versus painting debate, and way back when, of course, it was just somewhat dismissed.
Yeah, it's funny because I find a direct correlation between the invention of photography and the rise of what we now call modern art.
Hmm.
You know, prior to photography, everything was classicism, or, you know, we had the Rococo and the Baroque, and basically realistic or semi-realistic depictions of people in portraiture. Once the photography was created, you started getting impressionism, expressionism, and all these different ways to paint in the mid to late 1800s. And that's because they were trying to compete with this new medium.
Interesting.
And
as a reaction to photography and the photorealism.
Yeah, I personally believe that Impressionism is a reaction to photography.
Oh, I love that. I've never thought of that before. But the timing, I'm thinking of the early daguerreotypes and those early photo technologies, and you're right on, I think, as far as the timing. I'm sure there have been a doctoral thesis or two written about that, but
I'll bet.
Yeah, no, that's great. Oh, thank you. I learned a lot on these interviews, so I appreciate it. Gosh, we could continue that forever. I just wanted to look back a little bit. We talked about meeting up at Harvest the Arts, but just some of the other projects you've helped us with, Aaron, over the years. I think the very first one was, I think it was our first grant from the California Arts Council for a local veterans art project, and that's when we created the Veteran Art Park over on B Street in Marysville, and we created a series of murals working with veterans. And of course, you're unique because you're a veteran and an artist, but other veterans that shared some stories visually about their time in service, and then worked with other professional artists to kind of bring that to life in the form of a mural. So we created a series of 4-foot by 8-foot murals. Got a little piece of land from the city of Marysville that we could use until they sell it. Still there, they haven't sold it yet. So, and you kind of guided the project, and you wound up doing what, 2?
I think I did 4. I think. Well, I did 3 and helped with the 4th, and then
that's right.
Yeah.
No, exactly.
Yeah, I did my personal side of the thing, mural, and
then you did the centerpiece too. That's right.
Yeah, then I did the centerpiece. I helped Chris Thompson with his because he's a ceramist and and I'm a painter, so we kind of pulled our resources on that one, and then I helped.
We should mention, Chris's ceramics are in the gallery too, alongside Aaron's
very
portrait.
talented ceramist.
There's Aaron in the gallery. That's what the gallery looks like. There's a lot more to it than what you see in that photo. But you'll miss Aaron, very dapperly attired. So there he is. That was last Saturday afternoon. So
yeah.
Good stuff. There it is. That's more of the gallery. You can see some of Aaron's ceramics there.
Chris's,
great mugs, great holiday gift giving. Lots of these rice bowls, and oh my gosh, it's just beautiful stuff. So
yeah, there's Chris and his.
So you worked with Chris on his mural, and
then I worked with another artist, and we kind of went half and half on the 4th mural.
No, it's great. So those murals are still there. Take a look if you've never been to the Veterans Art Park in Marysville. Again, 30 minutes of your time. On the back of each of the murals are stories about the veteran whose ideas are portrayed, and the artist who helped them create the mural. So we went back as far as let's see. I know we had a veteran from the Vietnam era and also Korea. We had
Yeah,
the
I think
Korea
there's a Korean
represented.
War mural there.
And of course, more current Iraq, Afghanistan, Cold War. Our friend Bob Gass, the late Bob Gass, 82nd Airborne. I learned a lot about parachuting from Bob. He was my neighbor for many years before he passed. And you helped him portray that image coming of the parachuted soldiers coming down out of the airplanes. It was very dramatic, a real beauty. So that art park, again, it's still there and part of your local legacy. Then you worked with us when we did the Murals of Live Oak. We did the mural marathon where artists had, what did we give you, 36 hours to create a 14-foot by 12-foot mural. And
I think it was 24 hours.
Was it? Yeah, it was real quick.
Yeah, it was a 24-hour job, and that was
intense.
Yeah, it was
well, and we borrowed that idea from the city of Reno. They do a mural marathon on the side of Circus every year. Those are even bigger. They're like, I don't know, 20 by 18, and
wow,
and you know, a certain amount of athleticism involved just to be able to get out there and create that piece of art in that short period of time. But
yeah,
we had a big art festival party around it and had a great time. And you took a concept that was created by the Beale Air Force Base graphics design department and turned it into a beautiful wall mural. So that's at Elm Street and Broadway on the side of the old Sonny's Market. If you haven't seen the 5 murals that we created that day, again, well worth a few minutes of your time. And we love it every time we drive by there. So, and then we tried to do the Sippin' sketches. Christina May does such a great job with her Beauty of Paint studio doing events where folks come in for an hour or two and create a set kind of design, seasonal. In this case, she's doing a lot of Thanksgiving and Christmas themed painting projects right now. We tried to do a Brews and Battleships. I still like that idea. We got to try it again.
Yeah.
Kind of and their guys occasionally go to those Sippin' sketches. I've been to them. I love them. But we thought maybe coming up with a guy theme, Brews and Battleships, would sort of bring out some guys to, give it a shot painting a battleship. And anyhow, that didn't go over too well, so we might try it again someday. But then you've been always been a willing participant in our art gallery shows and exhibits, and even last year, 2020, we had some of your work up for Veterans Day 2020. The only thing really that we did last year in terms of the gallery exhibit. Did we lose Aaron? Looks like he might be frozen up. Oh gosh, is this where I stretch?
Oh no.
Yeah. We'll hold for just a moment here, see if we can bring Aaron back. Hold on.
I think
There you are. You're back.
Sorry about that.
Moved out of the studio / bar.
Yeah, I had to plug in.
That's okay. So yeah, well, I was going to ask you.
I'm in the studio side.
Oh, okay. Well, look at that. Is that an aircraft carrier on the easel?
Yeah.
Nice. So I didn't get a chance to ask you about your adult beverage collection there on the back bar. Did you have a themed cocktail for this evening, or?
Tonight's cocktail is the Honolulu Lulu. It's another Hawaiian themed cocktail, kind of on the vein of the Pearl Harbor. So
that's right. At the event Saturday, we were serving Pearl Harbors, right?
Mm-hmm. Tasty.
Yeah, vodka, Midori, a little pineapple juice, right?
Yeah, easy to make and easy to sip.
You can follow Aaron on Facebook if you do that kind of thing. What's your handle?
It's just Aaron Burks.
Just Aaron Burks with an S. That's right.
Yep.
Well worth it.
Yeah. It'll be my profile is a picture from just last Saturday in an orange suit. So.
Oh, great. He keeps it light on the politics, but he loves to make fun of, I don't know, how would you say, silly things people do.
Yeah. I'm not above making fun of politicians, but it's pretty even as to who I make fun of. So
that's true. No, you're very good that way.
I don't dabble in the polarization. At least I try not to. Today it's hard not to, but somebody will always be polarized by anything you do.
That's right. It's just inevitable.
Yeah.
If you stick your neck out far enough, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So maybe before we launch into the 10 questions, anything we missed? Anything you want to talk about? Do you have any long-range projects in mind that you want to talk about?
Yeah, there's always, I always get asked if I'm going to do kind of what I'm doing with Pearl Harbor survivors for other groups, such as, D-Day veterans or Korean War veterans. And that's definitely not out of the question. It's an idea that I'm willing to pursue, but at the same time, after doing a project of this magnitude for so long, I think it's probably going to go to working on my craft a little bit for a year or two after this is done.
Yeah, you deserve a breather. Well, and if I can just backtrack on the Pearl Harbor project too, again, one of the things that occurred to me since I've been living with this exhibit for this past week or so, since you hung it, just to have that kind of to put a face on such a historic event is really quite remarkable. It's just so up close and personal, the stories, looking at the faces of the young men. And it is all men. I know you'd hope you could find a woman that, was there at the time, but just finding any of them is tough. But that sort of that personal overlay over this historic event that we all know about or have heard something about is so powerful. In fact, I'll liken it with something else that we've worked on, and I almost hesitate to bring this up, but looking at the Japanese American experience as a result of the bombing by the country of Japan, and the Faces of Interment project that we put together, and looking at those faces again. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows about the internment camps, but then you see the faces. Everybody knows about the bombing of Pearl Harbor. You look at the faces of these people that were there. It's, for me personally, it's been pretty overwhelming. So
yeah. And it's absolutely something that can be brought up in this light, because these two events were connected. And you gotta, when you look at these faces, you have to disconnect the politics of what was going on from the faces, because
yes,
these are the players in a game being ran by other people, and
some way at a whole different pay grade.
Yeah, right? and so when you talk to most Pearl Harbor survivors, when I talk to most Pearl Harbor survivors these days, none of them have any animosity. Most of them didn't agree with or do not now agree with the measures taken back then. And we all know the saying, hindsight's 20/20, and you just kind of have to roll with that.
No, thank you for that, Aaron. Thank you for your insights. All right, well, let's lighten the mood a little bit, have some fun, and at some point I'll have to compare your answers today to what you said 10 years ago. So these are our 10 questions we wrap up most of these shows with, that were started by James Lipton on the TV show he had for years. So let's kick it off with, what's your favorite word?
Scuttlebutt.
That's the first time, unless you did it last year.
No.
That's a good one.
I didn't do it last year, I don't think.
All right. What's your least favorite word?
Cherish.
Oh, interesting. All right.
I just don't like the way it rolls off the tongue.
What turns you on, creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Learning. I like.
What turns you off? And what turns you off in those same categories?
Probably ignorance with an unwilling to learn.
Too much of that out there, huh?
Yeah.
What's your favorite curse word? We've heard them all, so.
Yeah, I think last year it was fuckwit, but I think I'm just finding myself saying shit more and more often. So
yeah, Good. It's crisp off the tongue. What sound or noise do you love?
I love the sound of clinking glasses, ice and glasses.
Here's to you, my friend. More of that later.
Yeah.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Fireworks.
Interesting. Yeah, good point. I wonder about that in my neighborhood sometimes. The thoughtlessness occurs to me. So,
Yeah.
what profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Maybe writing.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I think I'd go in for writing, I think.
What profession would you never like to pursue?
Accountant.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Harkening back to your pre-architecture days, right?
Yeah. No math for this guy.
And last, if not least, and certainly not least, if heaven exists, Aaron, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
The bar is over there.
I'm with you, my friend. I'm with you. Aaron Burks, thank you. Always a pleasure. Stay safe. Be well. Thank you to
David.
our.
I appreciate it.
Oh, always great to see you. Thanks to our technical support team, our producer, Abby Cecina, technical director, Shante Arroyo. Until next time, that's it for this month's Artist Alchemy. And don't forget to tune in on Sunday, this coming Sunday, for All About the Arts with my guest co-hosts, Tom Galvin and Joe Moy. I'm not sure who our special guest will be on Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock, but right here on our YubaSutterArts Facebook page and YouTube channel. You can always go to YubaSutterArts.org to get updates on our programs and other programs going on in the community. Thanks for watching. Have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll see you all soon.
Thank you.